This video is definitely more geared towards returning players from the original Destiny like myself. These are some things that you might already know if you've already started playing, but if you haven't, you may learn something new. And don't worry, if you're a newcomer to the series, we'll have a video up for you as well very soon. Today on gameranx, we're here to talk about things you need to know when starting a new game in Destiny 2. Starting off at number 10, when Destiny 2 was first announced, the first thing that came to mind was what happens to my current Guardians and what happens to all my stuff. We did go on to learn that your Guardians would carry over, but all of your gear and other items wouldn't be carrying over with them. And now that we finally have our hands on the game, we finally know exactly how your Guardian makes their transition over to Destiny 2. First off, Bungie has a nice treat for you when you start the game up. I don't want to spoil it because I think experiencing it for yourself is definitely the way to do it. It made me tear up a little bit, I will say. I really enjoyed it. After that little treat is done, you'll get to the character select screen and all your Guardians are there waiting for you. While there really isn't any benefit to playing as your previous Guardian, it's just nice to continue your adventure with them. If you played Destiny 1 the way I did, where you dumped a silly amount of hours into it, you kind of formed a weird connection with them and you just want to do it all over again, but with them. And moving on to number 9, I'm sure you guys remember the grind that was raising your light level. You'd play Crucible, run some strikes, do the raid, hoping to drop some good loot and also some engrams. And when you did drop an item that was better or decoded an engram, your light level only went up by a small amount. So it was always super important to make sure you decoded your engrams while you were rocking all of your highest level gear. It would suck when you forgot to switch your high level weapons from your other character to your current one when decoding engrams, because that new armor or weapon wouldn't drop at a higher light level. But with Destiny 2, Bungie really changed it up, and for the better. It really helps you out. Now when you drop an item or decode an engram, the strength of that item is determined right there on the spot, and that strength is determined by your current character's level and by the best possible gear you have across all your other characters and within your vault. So if you have your best weapons spread out across all your characters, or if you have a bunch of gear sitting in the vault that you just forgot about, the game knows you have that stuff and it takes that into account when giving you your new piece of loot. I love this. It definitely makes it a lot easier for us. I always lost track of what gear I had where and whether or not it was sitting in the vault. So Bungie, just thank you for this. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure the rest of us do too. And moving on to number 8, this is something we've known for a minute now, but I do think it's a big enough change that a reminder is definitely needed. Your weapon slots are no longer labeled as primary, secondary, and heavy. Now they're labeled as kinetic, energy, and power. Kinetic is still kind of like your primary slot, except in this slot, none of the weapons will have an elemental burn. Whereas the energy slot has the same primary weapons, but they have either arc, void, or solar burns on them. So you could have an auto rifle in your kinetic slot and also have an auto rifle in your energy slot, but only one of them has a burn on them. Then there's the third slot, the power weapons, which houses your heavy weapons, but now sniper rifles, fusion rifles, and shotguns are considered heavy weapons, which is honestly something I wasn't too down with when this was first announced, but after using the shotgun and sniper rifle in game, I'm definitely down with it. The shotgun just feels so much more powerful. The way it sounds, the amount of damage it does, taking it out just feels like a big deal, similar to when you whipped out your sword or your rocket launcher in Destiny 1. Moving on to number 7, public events have also gone through a bit of a change. With Destiny 1, public events were random and they would just pop up anytime when playing in a patrol area. The randomness was good and bad when you were just running around doing whatever, collecting spin metal back in the day. When it got dark and public event just started, it was always really exciting. You got really hyped to take part in it. But when you needed to find public events, they were never there, and it was always tedious to find them because they were random and you didn't know when or where they would pop up. There were third-party apps and websites that you could use, and they would tell you when and where a public event was about to start, but they weren't always that accurate, and it always sucks to have to do something out of game. But in Destiny 2, public events are now trackable. The game tells you when they're going to happen and where they're going to happen, and you can even mark it as a waypoint on your map and follow it. Yeah, I said map, which brings us to our next point. And number 6, there's an actual map now, like a real map with things on it to track and do. You can track public events like I just said. You can also track side missions, main missions. It'll also show you which NPCs are in the area. There being a map kind of changes the structure of the game. So with Destiny 1, you'd waste a lot of time going back and forth to orbit and sitting through loading screens. Here, everything is done through the map and you feel a lot more productive than jumping back and forth to orbit. It really makes Destiny 2 feel a little bit more fresh, and you're going to be staring at that map a lot, so it's good that Bungie made it easily accessible and really easy to work with. Next on number 5, Crucible has also undergone some changes, just like with the rest of Destiny 2. First off, the biggest change is the team size. In Destiny 1, you were playing 6v6 matches, and here every mode is 4v4. Control was changed a little bit. The point won't be captured any faster anymore if there are more guardians within the point. Also, when capturing a point, you don't neutralize it before capturing it. You just capture it, it's yours. And when you start a match, one team will have A captured while the other will have C captured. There's also a new mode called Countdown, and in Countdown, one team will play offensive while the other team will play defensive. The offensive team's goal is to plant a bomb in the opposing team's base and then defend it until it detonates. Then obviously the defending team is trying to stop the opposing team from planting the bomb. Countdown is actually a lot of fun, and it's quickly becoming one of my go-to modes to play in Crucible. And next to number 4, so if you're like me, you may have pre-ordered Destiny and got a ton of pre-order bonuses, or maybe you got a special edition that came with emotes or weapons, and when you start the game and finally get to the farm, you may be wondering where all that stuff is, because it's not right there, it's not readily accessible. Well, unfortunately, a lot of that stuff isn't available right away. The emblems and emotes are, though, those are available immediately. When you go to the farm, find the vault, and you'll find them sitting in there. But to get access to the legendary sword from the special edition, and the ghost shell and exotic weapon from retail exclusive pre-order bonuses, you unfortunately have to beat the campaign and hit level 20 before you can get access to them, which is a bit of a bummer, but I guess it kind of makes sense. Getting an exotic and a legendary sword right away would definitely give you a crazy advantage, and I guess Bungie doesn't want that. Who knows? And coming in at number 3, one thing you might want to get used to in Destiny 2 is walking, because you're going to be doing a lot of that. The game doesn't hand you a Sparrow early on like Destiny does. You could play for hours without actually getting one, which can start to suck because these patrol areas aren't exactly small. But it seems that the decision to not just hand you a Sparrow was actually done on purpose. Senior environment artist Jason Sussman said this, and I quote, "There's a lot of content now that we place in these worlds. There's a lot of little offshoots and a bit of history, and we don't want people just blasting past it. And it was finding that right balance of when, right, and how much we wanted you to walk those destinations. But it was intentional." If this is the reasoning behind this, I am so down. The story aspect of Destiny 1 was definitely the worst part of that game, and that led to you not really caring about what you were seeing in these empty, barren worlds. It seems like a Sparrow could possibly be a random drop. Don't quote me on that, but there is a guaranteed way to get one if you were wondering. This might be considered a spoiler, so just a heads up, if you don't want to hear this, here's your chance to skip it. Okay? I gave you a few seconds. After beating the game, Amanda Holiday becomes a vendor, and she sells Sparrows. That's a guaranteed way to get one. You could also possibly drop one from a bright engram, which can be purchased from the Eververse vendor, but that costs real-world money, which I know a lot of people really aren't into. But so far, those are the only ways that we know of how to get a Sparrow. And moving on to number 2, when you start your Destiny 2 campaign, you'll have access to one subclass, which is one of the new subclasses. Finding the next 2 subclasses is different than getting another subclass in Destiny 1. Here you have to come across a subclass relic. We don't know if there's something specific that spawns this relic. As of right now, it seems like it's kind of random. Players have reported dropping them in chests for finishing public events or taking out high value targets. It seems they can also drop in just any loot chest. Once you get your hands on the relic, you open up your director screen and it'll tell you what you do next. Each relic requires you to do something different to charge it, like doing X amount of public events or killing this amount of enemies. After doing that, a new mission will pop up in the European Dead Zone. This mission has you taking on waves of enemies with your new subclass, and then boom, that's it. You now have access to that subclass. It seems that the process is the same for the third subclass as well. Between levels 7 and 10 is where the first relic should drop, and between levels 14 and 15 is where the second one will drop. So keep an eye out, and if you've gone past that level and nothing's dropped, I would just recommend doing some of the stuff in the patrol area, like public missions and high value targets, and just trying to get loot crates to spawn, which gives you a better chance of actually picking up one of these relics. And finally, at number 1, each Guardian now has access to 2 cross-subclass abilities. Only cross-subclass, not cross-class, so each class has their own 2 abilities. These new abilities have a cooldown and are activated by holding the crouch button. The Titan has Towering Barricade, where you throw down a large barricade that can act as cover or even block off areas. Then the other one is Rally Barricade, which is a smaller barricade that you can peek over while you use it as cover. The Hunter has Marksman Dodge, where you dodge in any direction, and it also reloads your weapon. This one is activated by double tapping the crouch button. You also have Gambler's Dodge, which works the same as Marksman Dodge, but here dodging near enemies increases your melee energy. Then finally, you have the Warlock's abilities, the first one being Healing Rift. This ability has you spawn a well of light that continually heals you and any allies that are inside. Then you also have Empowering Rift. This also spawns a well of light, but instead of healing, this one boosts your attack power and your allies' attack power as well. The Titan Barricades really jam me up in Crucible, and the Hunter Dodge is great when you need to get out of the line of fire and quickly reload your gun. And I think the Warlock's ability is going to be really handy during strikes when you're fighting a boss. And those are 10 things you need to know when starting a new game in Destiny 2. But we want to hear from you guys. Meet us down in the comments and let us know what you think. Do you have any tips or tricks that you'd like to share, or maybe you've come across something that maybe we missed? Let us know. Also, as I'm sure you already know, hitting the like button really helps us out. And if you're new here for some reason, we put out videos like this every single day, and the best way to get them is with a subscription to the channel. And as always, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.